Can I ask you a personal question? How did you sleep last night? The night before? If you're in the middle of affair recovery, there's a good chance your sleep is a wreck. I see this in so many of my clients. They push through the day, using distractions to keep the painful thoughts at bay. But when their head hits the pillow, all they want is rest. That's when the distractions disappear and the whispers begin.
You can't rest.
You can't escape.
It's not over.
Everything is ruined.
You fight them, but they're too familiar, too strong. And before long, they won't shut up.
You think you know the whole story? Don't be so sure. There are always more secrets, always more lies. Every time you trust her words, you're just setting yourself up for another blow. Think about it.
What's wrong with you?
What else is hidden?
Why couldn't you keep this from happening? You weren't enough. Not attractive enough, not interesting enough, not strong enough. You should have done more.
You think it's over?
You should have been more.
It's not over. How could you ever be safe again? How will you ever trust again? The next time you let your guard down, the next time you relax, it could happen all over.
It's ruined. Everything.
That's what cheaters do. They do it again.
Your marriage, your family, your future. It's all slipping away. This is who you are now. Broken, betrayed, stuck. No escape, no future, just ruin.
Wait. What if there was a way out of this? What if you could actually sleep again? My guest today had to learn that for herself after her own betrayal story. Her journey led her into a science-based model for treating insomnia. Yana Vriesinga now devotes her work to helping others break free from post-infidelity insomnia. My conversation with her will come in 2 episodes, and this one is the first. If you'd like to hear more of Yana's personal story about infidelity, I've posted that separately on the Affair Healing website. The link is in the episode notes. And stay tuned. At the end of this episode, Yana shares some generous free resources you won't want to miss. One more thing. If these podcasts are helping you, do me a favor. Hold up a finger. Yeah, I see that one. Thank you. Yeah, there's another one. Oh, really appreciate it. Now, I'd like you to take those fingers and poke at your device to give us one of those star ratings. I'll appreciate you forever.
Welcome to The Recovery Room, a podcast presented by affairhealing.com.
In this healing place, in this healing place.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I have to tell you, this is something that is an important part of affair recovery, and yet it's not often talked about. But it comes up consistently in the work that I do with people struggling on the other side of trauma. Your expertise coming in here and talking to us about it, I'm sure is going to be of help to many of the listeners out there. So I'd like to hear from you, kind of from your perspective, why you think sleep is so important when it comes to affair recovery.
Well, my main point is that healthy sleep is the foundation of resilience because it affects so much in both our mental and physical well-being. So healthy sleep, I see it as the foundation of resilience, and you definitely need resilience to get through the phase after discovery or disclosure of an affair. Because for most people, it tends to be a very intense period in their life. Often they would say the most difficult period in their life, the most difficult thing they've ever had to face. So you actually need all the resilience you have, all the mental clarity you have, all the emotional strength you have. But then at the same time, for most people, their sleep gets badly disrupted just when they need it most. And that's why I feel so passionate to help people with what I call post-infidelity insomnia.
Yeah, you talk about this being something that is especially problematic when it comes to infidelity and the trauma. And for some people, this is the most traumatic experience that they'll go through in their life. And I've certainly heard that many times from people who've experienced other great difficulties in their life. But to say this betrayal, this experience has cut me more deeply than anything else before. And so it interrupts a lot of normal life functions, including sleep.
Yes, it does. And that's also been my personal experience. I've been through some very challenging life events before. And then when infidelity happened in my life, it really set me back. And I was actually struck by how impactful it was. I was like, well, I've been through things, but then it cuts you at so many different levels. And I think that's one of the first things to understand, that it's actually very normal to be completely derailed, to be on an emotional roller coaster, including having your sleep badly disrupted. At the minimal, I would say a very stressful situation. And then for quite a few people, it's even a traumatic experience. And then with everything that gets triggered by trauma, including sleep, is then on the table.
It's interesting, Yana. I've talked to a lot of people who, on the other side of their experience of infidelity, have gone down paths to explore that, and some to eventually help others, often through counseling, coaching, those kinds of things. You used this experience in a similar way. You learned from it and you accepted the challenge to delve deeper into one aspect of it to help yourself, but also to help other people. And it's an area that is just very focused. It's on sleep.
That's right.
Do you remember what was it that drew you to that specific interest? I mean, apart from wanting to figure out how to get more sleep, can you talk a little bit more about going down that particular path?
Yeah, beautiful question, Tim. It really came from the intense pain of the experience, that there was also the birth of like this wish to help others who were going through the same thing. Recovering after an affair, whether, the romantic relationship with your partner survives or not, it's a very challenging thing. And it's actually, you don't know how challenging it is until you face it. And so that surfaced in me this desire to help other people who were going through the same thing. And then sleep in particular, I just came to be aware of like how impactful the sleep disruption can be on all other aspects of affair recovery. So it's not just that you wake up, it's like, oh, I had a bad night and I'll just have an extra cup of coffee and it's just the way it is. It's really destabilizing in many ways. And we can talk about like the different areas of your well-being that it affects. But then I came to realize if people manage to improve their sleep, everything improves in their recovery journey.
I think I agree with that. I mean, you can give a lot of attention to all these other aspects of affair recovery, and you can help a client get to an understanding of that and even a desire to walk down those specific paths of recovery. But if they're tired, if they're not getting sleep at night, it really hinders their ability to do those things.
Absolutely.
And if we can address that one area to help people get more rest and all the benefits that come from good sleep, then yeah, I can see that has a positive impact on their efforts in all these other areas as well.
Yeah, so the way I see it is I chose to specialize in this topic more as a complement actually to the other help that people are already getting, because many people in the aftermath of an affair will look for professional help. And I think that's very smart because it's a very difficult situation to, do it yourself. And I feel what I do with helping people with specifically post-infidelity insomnia, it boosts all those other efforts that people are doing to recover.
Well, you can Google online sleep helps and you'll get all kinds of information, advice, some more helpful than others, but a lot of it's very generalized. You're looking specifically at the way that this post-infidelity trauma affects a person's ability to sleep and why it's so important to address in affair recovery. Can you talk a little bit more about how affairs affect sleep and why it's so important to address sleep in this particular issue?
Absolutely. So to start off, why does it affect sleep so badly for many people? is because affairs, like in the popular media or like in gossip magazines or in soap operas, it can have a bit of like almost like a glamorous or like oh, there's an affair. But actually when you go through it, it's no fun at all. And there's no like glamour about it. It's just very painful, very stressful, as I said, at least, or even traumatic. And then that triggers a stress response in the body. So many people will recognize this in a constant fight, flight reaction. Some people freeze, but it's definitely affecting your nervous system. Like you're just constantly on high alert, looking for danger, trying to piece things together. Why did this happen? Or if you're the person who acted outside of the relationship, like, why did I do this? How could this be? So your brain is overactive. Your body is producing all these stress hormones, including cortisol, and all that keeps you awake at night. So it's just part of a general trauma response. And actually, when you look at the definition of post-traumatic stress syndrome, insomnia and nightmares are one of the hallmarks. That's actually when medical professionals make a diagnosis, that's one of the things they look at. They will ask, is your sleep disrupted? And that's one of the hallmarks that, there is a trauma response going on in the body.
Do you think it's a fairly common response to people who've gone through this kind of trauma in their life?
As far as I know, there's no specific scientific research into experiencing infidelity, either, if you're the one who's like actively pursuing an affair or the one who is uncovering one. And then the effect on sleep. So I'm not aware that there's any specific research on that, but there is research on trauma in general and the effect on sleep. And most people who suffer from PTSD, actually about 50% of those people will also report disrupted sleep. So it's a very common trauma response.
Well, anecdotally, I can tell you I hear about it a lot.
Yeah, I'd love to. I would be very interested in hearing more of what you experience with your clients and what they share.
It is a very common problem that's talked about. And as we alluded to before, the struggle with getting the right kind of sleep becomes part of this negatively reinforced cycle in a person's life. So this unexpected stress and trauma comes to them, and it produces anxieties. And so when it comes to trying to sleep, the mind's processing all of this stuff and they have difficulty falling asleep. So they, that first night, hardly get any sleep. And they get up the next day and they're tired, but they're facing the same stress. And yet their lack of sleep increases the feeling of that stress in their life. And so then when they start going to sleep in subsequent nights, not only do they have that stress that they're having to fight, now they have this added anxiety or fear like, oh, what if I can't sleep again? And that gets added on to the anxiety and it just reinforces itself. So it makes it harder for them to get to sleep, and the lack of sleep, increases the anxiety in their life. And so all that stuff that they need internally to bring to the front to be able to work through these issues is so greatly diminished. And
absolutely.
Yeah. If we can help them in this one area, how can we help you sleep better? Then, as we said before, it's going to have a branching out effect. So tell us, save us, Yana. What can you give us that helps us understand this and move through it in a better way? Well,
I can definitely give all listeners who are struggling with this a lot of hope. Because even when you're still on that emotional roller coaster, or even if it's been actually quite a while ago, but you're still struggling with sleep, you can definitely improve your sleep. And so if we go back to the situation where the affair came recently to light and sleep is disrupted, even then you can improve your sleep if you understand the process and how to get step-by-step improvements. And then that will help you be more resilient and get all the benefit that you can get from any other resources that you're reaching out to, be it like professional therapist, books, podcasts, because you're just going to be better able to regulate your emotions. You're going to be more clear-headed. You're going to be also better able to respect other people's boundaries if there's like conflict, which tends to happen after discovery, that there is a lot of high conflict, let's say, opportunities. So then if you come to that sleep deprived, it's very difficult to control yourself and to say, like, I shouldn't say this. Often we know that we shouldn't say something. We know it, but we say it anyway. If we're sleep deprived, it's very difficult to have that willpower. And then if we flip it, if you do get healthy sleep, it's still difficult, but you have a higher chance of being mindful of what you say, respecting somebody else's boundaries, respecting your own boundaries, and knowing what you want and don't want. And it definitely is possible with practical steps to improve sleep, even in that intense emotional roller coaster phase.
You've coined the term post-infidelity insomnia to kind of set your focus apart from just regular looks at, difficulty sleeping and the different kinds of insomnia. As I alluded before, I can go online and find all kinds of tips for help you fall asleep. And again, some of it's great, some of it's maybe not so helpful. But I think you've pointed out that sometimes these, generic approaches to better sleep not only fall short of real help, especially to people in situations following an affair, but I think you even suggest that sometimes those helps can backfire. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely, because the help on the internet can backfire. But once you know why that happens, you can actually guard yourself against that. Maybe this is a good moment where I'll introduce kind of like an overall framework on how to solve sleep problems. And once you know this overall framework, that's kind of like your compass for navigating all that sleep advice you get on the internet, or even if you were to try and stay clear of that information, tips your friends will give, your family and your neighbors, because it's kind of like impossible to avoid all that advice. But actually, when you don't have the complete picture, that's when the advice can backfire. So maybe I can paint the complete picture.
Oh, I've got my notepad out, ready to listen. Go ahead.
Great. I actually got trained in a specific approach to solving sleep problems and insomnia. And that's called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And this is a very well-developed and well-researched and tested approach to resolving sleep problems. And it's actually recommended by medical organizations worldwide. Now, I find that term cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia quite a mouthful and maybe also a bit confusing. Like, what does that mean? It's called CBT-I for short. And just a little side note, like if your listeners are looking for help, I would definitely look for somebody who is certified in CBT-I. So it is something to Google and a term to remember for that reason. But if we break it down, what does it mean? It actually means that we're going to turn 3 dials to help you sleep better. You need to dial all 3 of them in the right direction, and then you have a good chance of improving your sleep. The problem with all these like little sleep tips here and there is that it's probably only 1 dial that you're turning. And maybe at the same time, turning another dial actually in the wrong direction. And I'll explain why. There's actually 3 areas to work on, the 3 dials, right? 2 of them get a lot of attention online and kind of like in popular culture and general knowledge. And the 3rd one doesn't. And the 3rd one is actually crucial. So I'll start with the first 2, and then I'll reveal the 3rd, and then you understand why the 3rd is so crucial. And once you know this, you can like reframe all the tips you get and kind of like use them to your benefit rather than it is at your detriment. So the first dial is getting your sleep environment right. And there's quite a few practical things you can do to improve your sleep environment. So one important one, well researched, is to make your bedroom dark. That's a helpful tip. Like in case your bedroom isn't dark yet, invest in some blackout curtains or even get like a sleep mask if curtains are, difficult to get or too expensive. And then for just a little bit of effort, a little bit of money, you've blocked out a whole lot of light during the night. So that's a helpful thing to do. So look at that sleeping environment. Then the second dial are all kinds of habits that you can either stop or start. One you'll often hear is, for example, don't drink coffee after noon. And that's actually a very wise advice because coffee has a very long half-life. That means like a caffeine. So anything that contains caffeine, energy drinks, tea, coffees, they can stay, depending on your genes and how quickly you break down caffeine, anywhere between 6 and even 12 hours.
When I was younger, it didn't seem to be a problem. As I got older, I realized, I can't drink caffeine in the afternoon or evening anymore.
Yeah, that's that happens for many people because also as we age, our natural ability to generate sleep decreases. So that's also like if there's listeners who are maybe like hit by an affair and they're already in their 50s or in their 60s, it's more likely that their sleep will be impaired. Whereas if they're in their 20s and their 30s, they might be lucky. And even despite all the emotional chaos, they continue to sleep. That can also happen. Caffeine is another one, like a habit. So that's an example of a habit. And if you are going to list like all the habits that you could start and stop, like it's a long list. And that's actually good. That actually gives people a lot of opportunity to improve, upgrade their habits, and then increase the chances of getting a good night of sleep. But then we get to the third dial, and that's the one that's most overlooked. And that's that you also need to have helpful thoughts around sleep. And this is actually where usually things go off the rails. Because overall, stress and sleep are like fire and water. So the stress is the fire and the sleep would be the water to calm it down. If we have stressful thoughts in our life, thoughts that create distress, then it's going to be difficult to sleep. Now, in case of, in the aftermath of an affair, there's plenty of stressful thoughts that people will have. Whatever position they had in the situation, like even, for example, their affair partner, if they have a bit of a conscience, they will have stressful thoughts around what has happened and what they've gotten involved in. And so for everybody, it will be stressful. Mostly, I think, for the betrayed partner, but for everyone involved. So stress is already high. If you then also have stressful thoughts around sleep, it's a whole nother layer of stress that you actually mentioned. And like a stressful thought could be, if I don't sleep well tonight, tomorrow I'll be a mess. Now, imagine trying to sleep with that thought. Like, I have to sleep right now or else.
The pressure's on.
The pressure is on. And pressure is a form of stress, right? And stress and sleep are like fire and water. They don't go together well. If we look at sleep advice in general, even like in absence of affair or like other big life events, a lot of people get tripped up with the thoughts because they hear a lot of advice of like, your bedroom should be dark, it should be cold, it should be quiet, and you should have like all these habits. You shouldn't do this, blah, 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 and you should do that, blah, 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 blah. Could all be like scientifically correct, proven in a lab, but if you don't match it with that third dial of helpful thoughts, it can really derail you. For example, if we go back to the blackout curtains, it's wise to make the bedroom dark. Scientifically proven, it improves like your melatonin and different things. Good idea. But if you then pair that with an unhelpful thought, let's say an unhelpful thought could be, you put up the blackout curtains, you spend all day shopping, you spend quite a bit of money and time on it. Now you're in bed and you're like, I have to sleep now because I installed the blackout curtains. And if I don't sleep now, then my sleep will never be okay again. That means I'm broken for the rest of my life. Because so-and-so on the internet said that if you install the blackout curtains, you'll sleep like a rose.
This better work. Yeah.
Yeah, this better work, or else it means my sleep is gone forever. And people start thinking like, my sleep is broken. I lost my ability to sleep. So if you start having these thoughts, can you see how that adds a lot of stress to the situation and a lot of hopelessness? And if that's also on top of already a lot of stress around an affair, then you're not just laying in bed thinking like, oh, what will happen to me, my future, my family, my children? But then you also start thinking like, oh no, now my sleep is broken. I've lost my ability to sleep. I'll never sleep again. I've installed those blackout curtains. Again, so-and-so said I should sleep like a rose and I'm not, so there must be something terribly wrong. And then if I don't sleep, everything will crumble. It's a whole cascade of thoughts that can add so much stress that actually it's the thoughts that keep you awake.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, in personal experience, I've known that to be true. This focus on the thoughts and trying to figure out how do we turn that to helpful thoughts? Because in moments of trauma or anxiety and tension in our lives, it felt to me like this new guest showed up in my life. It's this person with this long list of things that I had to be now concerned about. And during the day, I could be sometimes fairly successful in pushing that guy to the side because I could distract myself with other things. But the one place it's really difficult to distract yourself from anything is when you're lying quiet in bed. It's just you and your thoughts. And that's when that guy shows up with his list again. Here's all the things you need to be concerned about. You need to solve these problems. You need to worry about outcomes. You need to do all of this. So I can't sleep because I'm thinking about that list. And that guy's making me think about that list. And the next night, I don't sleep again. And by about the third night, he comes with this list, but there's a new item on the top. It said, oh, by the way, you need to worry about not getting sleep. And I'm going, yeah, but you're the problem. You know, you're the reason I can't get to sleep. But you almost feel powerless. Like I can't help this thing showing up in my life, unwelcomed every night, almost demanding my attention on all this stuff. So it sounds good. Oh, we should have better thoughts. How do you help us get there?
Great question, Tim. And I love the way you described it because that's exactly how it goes. For solutions, I think first step is to actually understand that what is going on is completely normal. That awful guy with that long list shows up, that there's actually nothing wrong with you. It's just your body and a brain that are under stress. So then that happens. So I think normalizing it, knowing that this is actually a very normal reaction to a very stressful situation, helps you understand that there's nothing wrong with you, your brain, or your body. Actually, it would be weird if you wouldn't be laying awake in a way. I must say, like, some people are genetically lucky and they can sleep through anything. So they'll worry during the day and they'll be under stress during the day. But come nighttime, they go out like a light and, you know, God bless them. Very happy for them. But for many people, it's completely normal that they wake up. Now, let me give you a little analogy. Let's say you go to bed, turn the lights off, you're about to go to sleep, but then you actually smell smoke. You think like, well, I better check what's going on. So you get out of bed and you discover that actually your kitchen is on fire. Then, of course, you'll go and call the fire brigade, you'll call for help and for them to resolve it. So actually, in case of something going on in your life, like a fire in the kitchen, you don't want to sleep. Like you wouldn't want to be in your bed going like, I smell smoke. Yeah, but sleep is important. I'll sleep. I'll deal with that tomorrow. So you actually it's healthy for your system. If there's a threat out there, if there's a danger, it's healthy for your system to become alert and to try and fix it.
Right.
The problem is it's not a kitchen that's on fire and that you need to deal with at that exact same moment, get help, and then it's resolved. It's a complex life situation that you could compare to like a fire. It's definitely threatening you on many levels, but you can't solve it in the moment. So I think a first step is just to say like, thank you, system. Like, thank you, brain and body. I can see that you're recognizing that there is a big problem in my life and that you want to respond to that and you want to work on it day and night. Thanks for that. But actually, right now, it's time for you to stop problem solving for the next 8 to 10 hours, and we'll deal again with that tomorrow. So I think it comes with the first step is just recognizing that it's natural what's going on. Actually, thank your body and brain for doing their job, but then also thank them and say like, for today, you've done enough. Tomorrow we'll continue this fight for whatever is going on in our life.
That analogy of the guy showing up with the list, instead of seeing him as the enemy, I can actually reframe that and say, listen, I know you have my well-being in mind. You're coming to me with best intentions. This list of things that you're bringing to me are important things that need to be worked through. but it's not helpful for you to show up right now. I can't do anything that brings quick resolution to these things on the list. So thank you for the list. I know it's going to be there in the morning. Can you just go over and take a seat, and I'll see you when the lights come up? I wish it was that simple, but you're saying that's kind of the attitude we need to have about it.
Yeah, that's definitely an overall attitude to have. And by acknowledging the way you did it just then is very powerful. And you can actually make it also very practical. If that guy shows up with a list, you can actually just write those things down. That's definitely one of my practical tips. Have a notebook next to your bed and a pen. And if things arise, write them down. Because that's also a thing in the system. We can make it very simple. Like you have to remember to buy milk the next day. Your brain is gonna remind you that you need to buy milk. Actually, usually at very weird moments, like you're in the shower or you're just in bed. And it's like, don't forget to buy milk. The kids need milk. If you then put it on a list and you have a system where you also like reliably check your list before doing your groceries, actually your mind will let go. It'll be like, it's on the list. He or she will look at it tomorrow before they go to the supermarket. I can stop reminding. So the same with like, if you're going through the aftermath of an affair, there's usually a lot of things, emotional things, but also a lot of practical things that you need to deal with. You might have on your list, like looking for a therapist or a counselor, looking into maybe help for the children. It's so many things come up. So then, yeah, definitely have that notebook next to your bed, write it down. And then you can say to the guy, I just wrote it down. I will pick up my notebook tomorrow and I have some designated time to work on it.
I've found that to be helpful as well. I don't know why it is we tell ourselves, no, if I keep thinking through, somehow I'm going to solve this problem in my mind tonight. I know that's not true. And yet we convince ourselves, like, I need to do this. I need to spend time thinking about this and processing it as though it's going to lead to some satisfying conclusion. It doesn't. So being able to tell ourselves, listen, I know this doesn't work. So let me put it down so I know I won't forget it, and it'll be there to consider and work on when it's the right time to do it.
Right. And I have an additional tip for that. So there's like the practical things to deal with. So put those on a list, but also put time in your schedule to actually work on them. So then you can tell the guy with the list, I'll work on that tomorrow or on Thursday. It's on my schedule. Because that's also overall an important thing, is to continue to make progress during the day. If you're working on it during the day, if you're looking into practical steps during the day, maybe you have to look for other housing, for example. If you're working on that and you're seeing a therapist and you're doing different steps, then it's easier to tell the guy, I'm working on it. If you do none of that and you're just paralyzed and not working on things, then it's not weird that the guy keeps reminding you, like, this is an emergency. The kitchen is on fire. You need to deal with this. So that's definitely one thing. And then also, of course, there's the thoughts that are triggered by emotions. What I hear like commonly and what I experience is definitely the period in the aftermath of an affair is a true emotional roller coaster. So all these emotions come up and they want our attention. Again, I would say pen and paper, basically giving the emotions a voice. So let's say it's a lot of anger that you feel. I'll just be like, hey, who's there? Well, it's anger. Okay, welcome. Just tell me. I'm curious. And it just goes like, I'm so upset because X, Y, Z. And then when you write it down, that's when you start to move forward. In our heads, we can only go in circles. We can only make like 1-2 steps ahead. But when you write it down, then you can move to step 3, step 4, and maybe get to a point where you go like, yeah, you let out the anger. It says what it needs to say because it's your emotions are trying to tell you something.
Yeah. And even exploring like what's making me angry. What's the thought or the emotion behind this anger? That can all be part of the writing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that can all be part of the writing, and maybe another emotion comes along, and then maybe actually something pleasant comes along, like maybe even like self-love, like, hey, I really love you. You're doing great in this difficult situation, whatever. But at least when we write, we move forward. Whereas if we keep just thinking, we go in circles. And that's definitely also one to do at night when you're ruminating at night. It's just like put on a low light, get your pen and paper and just start writing.
Are there other tips that help with kind of distracting from those unhelpful thoughts, from the guy that shows up with the list? Are there ways of replacing those negative thoughts, those thoughts of anxiety with thoughts?
Wait, we're splitting this conversation into 2 episodes. So let's close this one with Yana, and I'll see you in episode 20 for part 2.
Yana, this has been really helpful so far, and I know there's more for us to talk about. But in closing this first part of the 2-part podcast series and talking with you, is there anything you would recommend to listeners who maybe want to take a deeper dive and want to find out more about how maybe you can help them or resources you can provide?
Yes, absolutely. Well, overall, as I said, I recommend people to look for help. So that could be someone in your region. Look for somebody who's trained in CBT-I. And also, I have a free resource for people who want to dive deeper and also find practical tips. So if you go to my website, you can sign up for an email course that's completely free. And that will repeat some of the information that we've talked about today, and also additional tips, and also a lot around helpful thoughts. I also share a bit more about my personal story. If anyone is interested in that, they can simply go to my website, and they will find on multiple places an easy way to sign up for the course. The course is called Stress Less, Sleep More, and you can find that at resilientdays.com. So again, my website is www.resilientdays.com.
Well, we'll provide the link in our episode notes and look forward to this continued conversation in the next podcast.
Thank you so much, Tim.